I was just like, being single sucks.
The person doesn't make you happy.
And how we're loving ourselves before we can look at how we love other people.
Preparing for the promise that I don't see.
No good thing will he withhold from them who walk uprightly. Good evening, everyone. How are you doing today? I hope that you had a good day and that you are ready to talk about this interesting topic. Are single women with no children happier than the rest of y'all? Please let me know when you sign on. Just say hi so we can go ahead and greet you. Happy to have you here. My name is Lorraine Edwards. I am the co-founder of A Single Mission, a business ministry started to engage, encourage, and empower single women of faith to address the unique fears, stresses, challenges, and loneliness of being single in a family-focused faith community by creating a life they love right now. Today, I just want to share a couple of things. I am alone today, so you have to be in the chat talking to me, asking questions, making comments about this topic. Now, I just want to set the stage for really what this program is about. Not this topic, but this program, Live, Love, and Marry Wizerr. This is a conversation between me. I usually have a co-host or a guest that will come on. Sometimes it'll be just me and you all. And we're going to just talk like we're girlfriends. I know there might be some gentlemen here too, but you get to, peek into the inner circle. And how we talk to each other in private, we want to bring that out to public because these are issues that other women who may not have girlfriends to talk about it, or young girls who don't know who to talk to. These are all issues that can come up. And so we want to be in conversation. This isn't an interview. This isn't like me lecturing. This is us just talking. So I hope that you join in that. My goal for this year is to reach 10,000 women and make impact in their life around single women. But there are probably going to be some married women too. We have a Marry Wizerr section. And to help them to create a life they love so that they make healthy relationship decisions, that they live with joy, that they love with intentionality and purpose, and that they marry in a godly fashion with purpose. So you know that you all are my impact army. I can't do this by myself. So that means you have to like, share, comment, subscribe, tell your sister girls about it, tell your teenage daughters about it, tell your parents, your church members, whoever, so that we can go out and make this impact. So our check-in, every week we have a check-in. This one's simple. I want you to answer yes or no or whatever, I don't know. Are single women with no children happier? Answer in the chat. I want to see your comments, your answers. Are single women with no children happier? This is our third episode of Live, Love, and Marry Wizerr, and we are grateful for you to be here. I do not take for granted you taking your time to spend this with me. And as we kind of perfect our process, things will go smoother. Of course, I hit go live, but then there was a second place to hit go live. So if I was a couple of seconds late, I apologize for that. Let's see. Heather H. Fancy Free says yes, but they may not know that when they are single. That's a really good point. When you come on, just hit the chat. And now we will go ahead and get started. Remember, if you have questions, if you would just put some question marks before and after so it's easier for me to track. And then we will have a section near the end where we talk about questions. And you can also email me, and I will have that at the end. But my email address is lorraine@asinglemission.com. Pretty straightforward. Now, our topic. I'm going to share with you how this topic kind of came into my mind. I was doing some research and I came upon this video about this topic, and there was an article. And the article says, we're going to take that off. New research says unmarried women without kids are happier. But is that actually the case? The American Use of Time survey done by the Bureau of Labor Statistics did a survey of how people are using their time. And after that, a gentleman named Paul Dolan took that research and he wrote a book called Happy Ever, should say ever, Happy Ever After, Escaping the Myths of the Perfect Life. Now, just that should give you maybe a clue of where we're heading at the end, but we'll just keep that a secret right now. And some of the points that he made, or that were made in in this article, because that's going to be our primary source. I didn't buy the book or read the book. I read some about the book, but the article is really where we're going to take our source. Now, if you check in the description of this video, you will see all of the resources that I used or referenced, and you'll see links to that, as well as some other information that we'll share later. So let's read what he says. Happiness expert, what is that even? Paul Dolan draws on a wealth of evidence to bust the common myths about our sources of happiness and shows that there can be many unexpected paths to lasting happiness. By freeing ourselves from the myth of the perfect life, we might each find a life worth living. Now, let's talk about some of the points that were brought out in this article. Now, the first thing you should know is that it was self-report. So the married people, the single people, single women, single men, married women, this is self-report about their level of pleasure and distress in their life. So that's important, that this is how they are perceiving and reporting what is going on in their life. The next thing is that data actually does show that single women are the healthiest, single women with no children, because that's an important aspect of this. Single women with no children are the healthiest and happiest subgroup. So when we're talking about married women with no children, married women with children, married men with no children, and so forth and so on. Single women with no children, that's me, are part of the healthiest and happiest subgroup. And that's research beyond just what was done with the American Use of Time survey. Another important point is that single women were more satisfied with their singleness than single men. So a lot of times we get the idea that single men, they're out here partying and, you know, they're players and they're doing all this stuff. And so they're loving their life and doing the thing. But in the survey and in other research, it shows that single men are less satisfied with their singleness than single women are. Research has also shown that single women with no children have a lower risk of physical and mental health conditions than married women with children. So we're at two opposite ends of that of the spectrum. Single women, no children, married women with children. And single women with no children have a lower risk of physical and mental health conditions. And then finally, and there were many points, but we're just pulling out a few of them. Finally, single men were unhappier than married men. So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about men in this group, but single men were unhappier than married men. So if there was a spectrum or a scale, if you would, it'd be like single women with no children. And they didn't really say much about single women with children. So single women with no, I'm just going to use what they talked about. Single women with no children, married men with children or without, single men, and then married women with children. So those were the main categories that they talked about. And that would be the rating of happiest to least, at least as it relates to what Paul Dolan is saying and what he's interpreting from this article. Or is that what he's saying? We'll find out. Let's see if we have any comments on that so far. The next thing I want to talk about, though, is why this might be the case. Now, we had a comment, someone said, yes, but they may not know that single women may not know that when they are single. But why might single women be happier or report being happier than married women? Well, one reason is that was reported is freedom. So in November, I did a challenge that we call the Create a Life You Love Challenge. It was 3 days and it was for single women. Now, some of these women had children, some didn't, but it was for single women of faith. And in our warm up and in our discussion, I asked the question, name one thing that you love about being single? Because the general consensus, of course, is that most of the women on the call, if not all of them, want to be married, would like a partner, and for those who don't have children, to have children. But I said, you know, we know last week, if you missed that, we did a whole program about the fears, challenges, and loneliness of being single. So we know the downside. So it's like, what's the upside? And without exception, there wasn't thousands of people on the call. There was a few, but without exception, and I've asked this question in other places too, without exception, the answer was freedom. Freedom to do what? Freedom to travel when they want to, freedom to do whatever they want to, freedom to spend their money how they want to, freedom to date whoever they want to, freedom to just live their life. If they feel called to become a missionary, they don't have to ask permission to do that. They don't have to consult with someone else. They don't have to deal with someone else's calendar or their priorities or their money management issues or any of that. So they just have freedom to live their life how they choose. And that is one of the things that came out in this article, that freedom to not have to answer, to make any decision that you want, and not have to answer. Now, just a note, last week we talked about making decisions on your own, but we talked about it from the other side of it, of having to make every decision on your own with nobody who has the same buy-in. And so that can be both positive and negative. But for now, we're going to look at the positive. The second thing they talked about is responsibility. Now, research shows, and I think if there are any married women on the call, they would know that married women report, research shows, and we know from qualitative as well as quantitative data, that married women do more of the domestic labor in the home, but they also do more of the emotional work in the home. They're the ones who are trying to connect the relationship, to keep the relationship connected. They're the one who is trying to talk things out when there are problems. They're the ones who trying to get the spouse into counseling if it gets to be that place. So they're investing a lot of energy and effort, both mentally and physically, into maintaining not just the marriage and the family, but the home. So single women don't have that. And for those who report that they literally feel better when they're not in a relationship because they don't have to expend that much energy on the relationship. Another thing is culture. So our culture, even as much as we've broken away from a lot of things, there's still a traditional structure. And so income and children and childcare is left to the married woman. She's more responsible for the childcare. She's more responsible for she can't get leave at work. I'm sorry, she can't get leave. So in Norway, women get a year off when they have a baby. And in Norway, parents report being happier than people with no children because they have societal support, they have the income because they get leave, they get to take care of their child and not have to worry about childcare. Well, single women don't have to worry about any of that either if they don't have any children, single women with no children. Now, there's income issues, of course, because women tend not to get paid as much, but then they don't have as much to spend if they don't have children and a spouse and all the other things that come with being a wife and a mother. And so culturally, because of the way our culture is structured in a very traditional way, married women tend to struggle more because they're the ones who, if the child gets sick at school, they have to take off. They're the ones who, they're pregnant, they have to take off for their appointments. And then when they have the baby, they only maybe get 6 weeks or sometimes 12 weeks, but that's still not that long to be with your child. They got postpartum depression, and all of these challenges that come with that. And their spouse is not investing as much. Typically, we know there are exceptions, but there's some things that your husband can't do. He can't carry the baby for you and some other things that he can't do. But many of the spouses are not doing even the things that they can do. So the women are having to carry that burden. And then the final thing is choice. So one of the main things that this book is really even talking about, even though the article is very alluring and it says, oh yes, single women are happier when they don't have children and they're happier than ever. One of the things that he's really talking about is breaking through the myths of how we should be. And so when single women now are happier because they get to choose to not be married. That wasn't really much of a choice many years ago. Your father would maybe marry you off, or you would be arranged in some countries. And even in this country, you were expected to be married by a certain age. That's where that whole old maid thing comes from. And at that time, an old maid was somebody who was probably in her late 20s or early 30s, let alone 53. But now women have the choice if they want to be married or they don't, and they can still do the things that they want to do. They can travel alone, they can buy a home alone, they can own businesses, they can work, all of those things. And so they're happier with the ability to choose their life rather than living within the midst of what is supposed to be this that the society has created. But what is the truth? What's the balance to all of that? All of that sounds good and all of that is true on some level, but what's the balance to that? Why might single women be happier just because of those things, but then there are other women who are married and have children and are super happy? What's the balance? Well, part of it is not just their freedom and their responsibility, culture, or choice. It's that there's still stress. I'm a single woman with no children and I have stress, but there's less stress. There's a different kind of stress on a woman who's married than a woman who's single, on a woman who has a child and a woman who doesn't. When you accept that you're going to get married and then you're going to have a child or children, you are necessarily taking on a level of stress that a single person does not have to, because of the things that we've already previously mentioned. Another thing is that single women often take the time to access their social network better. And when you're married, you don't always have the freedom, the time to go hang out with your girlfriends, or you may not even have the environment where your spouse supports that. Praise God if you do, but you still may not have as much time to hang out with your girlfriends, go to a book club, go to a cafe and just have, coffee by yourself or relax. Single women have these different options where they can de-stress and relax and have fun and get those shots of dopamine that we talked about last week from laughter with their friends or hanging with their people or doing something fun, and all of those things. They access their social network. A lot of times, and the other thing is when women are single and they choose that, not it's chosen for them in that they desperately want a spouse, but they just can't find one, but they choose to be single. It's often because they've found their purpose and they're walking in that. Some people are more career oriented, and that career is something that really drives them. A lot of times, not that married women don't have purpose too, they do, but sometimes that gets lost in all of the responsibilities that are required just to be someone's wife and someone's mother. And so that can be pushed off. And so that can create some challenges around your immediate happiness and joy in your life. And then finally, and this is kind of the final point, that the reality is, and I want to show you what this says. One of the quotes: research shows that both women and men tend to become less happy with their marriages over time, and women get more disillusioned with their marriages than men, says clinical psychologist Sherry Campbell. At best, women start marriage feeling a bit happier than being single, but here's the thing. But as they stay married, their life goes back to being as satisfied or dissatisfied as before marriage. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Okay. So for me, this is the critical point. Everything that I said before is so true, but the reality is that if you don't love your life, let me put this up here so you can see it. If you don't love your life when you are single, marriage will not change that, says Lorraine. We can say, yeah, the research can show this and this, but it's because these people who are single that are happy and are reporting that are people that have chosen that. They've chosen to be single and they've chosen to love that. They've chosen to do things that create a life that gives them enjoyment, that gives them purpose, that gives them pleasure, that allows them to be with their friends and serve and do the things that they were created to do, that they were purposed to do. But the reality is, if you get married because society says that it's time for you to get married, or if you get married because you want to be happy, if you get married because you think that this relationship is what's supposed to happen and you've grown up always wanting it, but you weren't happy before, they admit that there's a spike in your happiness when you first get married, but the reality is that you come back to the place where you were before you got married, either satisfied or dissatisfied with your life. If you don't love your life when you are single, marriage will not change that. And in many cases, marriage will make it worse in the long run. Maybe in that short run, when you're still in the honeymoon period, it'll be great. But in the long run, it will be worse. And so the Bible says, Proverbs 15:13, a merry heart makes a cheerful countenance, but by sorrow of the heart, the spirit is broken. So are single women happier? If they choose to be. Are married women unhappier? If they choose to be. God has put within us the ability to change our mind, change our outcome, create a life that you love, no matter what your status is, marital or otherwise. So, what are you going to choose to do? Our purpose here, A Single Mission, the company that sponsors Live, Love, and Marry Wizerr, is about helping single women of faith create a life they love now, regardless of their marital status, so that if God does bring a spouse to you, then that's going to be so much better, so much more beautiful. And that joy, and I'm using happiness in a deeper way than just a momentary thing, that will be lasting. Doesn't mean everything's going to be good. Everything's not good in any situation that you're in. But now you have a different perspective because you choose better. You choose your partners better when you're happy because you don't feel like you need that. You choose someone that's right, that honors you, that has the green flags and not red flags. You can have a couple yellow flags, and we'll discuss that too, but you work that out. But you don't feel desperate to jump into a relationship to make you feel happy, or because society says that it's time for you to get married, or because you want to have this traditional mythical relationship that doesn't come from taking that step. It comes from God leading you into that step. So, single women are happier Single women without kids are happier if they choose to be. Married women with children are happier if they choose to be. Single men are happier if they choose to be. Married men are happier if they choose to be. I'm going to show this. Praise God, I chose to be happy, so I'm living my best life. Go, Susan. I love that. Do you have any questions or comments? We're going to take a couple of those right now, and then we're going to close out. I want to honor your time. We are keeping this to 45 minutes, no more than 45 minutes going forward as we're kind of finding our way. But if you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear them. Remember, if you don't love your life now, marriage won't change that. And you have the power to create a life you love. So, let me do this right here. Next week, we have a great, exciting topic for you. I'm working on it right now. I'm going to tease it because I'm just going to have faith that we're going to make this happen. Next week, our topic is the married bachelor. The married bachelor, when the church is unsafe. Now, I'm going to admit I stole this topic because I was on a Zoom this Sunday and in a singles ministry meeting and gathering, and it was fantastic. And I have reached out and asked a couple of people to see if they would come on and have that discussion here with you all. But as we even talked in that group, we realized how many people have been preyed upon, and not this kind of prayer, preyed upon by people in the church who are married. And this could be bachelorette too, because we did have a gentleman who talked about women who didn't say they were married, but were trying to holler at him. So we're going to bring that topic to the table and we're going to uncover, but we're not just going to talk about it. We're going to give you some tips and some tools to use to first determine if someone is married, and also to know what to do if you find out that they are, and maybe you've been in it longer than you anticipated. And so now you got your heart involved. So we want to talk about that and help you to navigate those waters, because they're deep waters. That doesn't happen rarely. It happens quite often in the church. Finally, I just want to share with you that our Develop Your Purpose Bootcamp is, the details are in the description. But we are helping women develop their purpose. Some people don't have this magical thing that comes out and says, this is what you're supposed to do. But you have things that you like, you have interest, you have things that you're excited about, you have people that you want to help. And we want to help you put all of that together to develop your purpose if you're not walking in it. So if you're on the live and you want to be a part of that, we have a special price for you for $199. This will, right now the date is February 5th, but if it changes, we'll let you know once you sign up. If there are no questions or other comments, we are going to say good night to you. Until next time, whatever choice you make for your life, whether to be married, to be single. Be certain that those choices will help you live, love, and marry wiser. God bless you and have a good evening. See you next week.